Stop viewing properties! In this video, I'm going to provide a slightly controversial perspective when it comes to the process of buying investment properties. We're going to talk about viewings in this video. Hey, it's Gary from Let Property, and we help thousands of investors every single year buy and sell their investment properties through the sale of specialist tenanted properties. I personally own a multiple seven-figure property portfolio, and I'm here today to help investors just like you on the process of becoming a successful property investor too. The truth is, when I first started investing in properties, going to property viewings was actually one of the first things I was told and taught to do. And it made me feel really confident about going to all these viewings. But the last 6 properties that I have purchased, I have not ever seen the properties. We need to start by asking, why are we even going to a viewing in the first place? What's the reason we're actually going out to view the property? The key word that most people will use is due diligence. Or they might describe it as going to get a feel for the property and see if it's great. Going to see if the condition of the property is in a good enough standard for me to purchase to set a price and buy the property. Now, the thing that I find so fascinating about this argument is that most investors who are actually buying property really don't actually know how to value a lot of the problems within a property, and they don't know how to do that due diligence that they're talking about going out to do. Like, if you're an experienced investor and you're two ways about something, going out to see the actual physical condition of a kitchen can actually help you understand what you might need to spend on it. So I'm not against, a particularly experienced person going out to property, but we literally book hundreds of property viewings per week, many times with first-time investors who don't know anything about property investing. They don't know anything about the costs of refurbishing a property, and they're going out to view a property. And the reason that they go out to view properties is not because they actually have a specific thing they want to look at and see. It's generally because it's just the inertia and the kind of thing that they've always done and thought is the right thing to do. And in this video, I want to challenge that argument and actually understand more what we should be looking for and why a viewing very often doesn't even solve our problem. Like, serious investors that I know don't view anything because not only do they not have the time to view anything, there's no need to view anything because in property we employ surveyors, people who are much more qualified than us, to actually go out to the property and tell us what the condition of the property is. Really, the job of a property investor is to look at the figures of a property to see if the numbers stack up, and then to financially purchase that property and structure the deals in a way where we can actually afford that investment and cash flow off the asset. You're effectively a small-time asset manager. You're not a surveyor. You're not an interior designer. It's not your job to go out there and actually fix up little bits in the kitchen. This is what we employ letting agents or surveyors to actually do, is to give us this information, give us this feedback so that we can actually be a hands-off property investor. And the mistake I see so many people make is that they come in with the concept of being a hands-off property investor, and in the first instance of finding their first property, they become the most hands-on property investor in the world because they go out and view 10 tenanted properties and don't buy one. Now, you maybe hear an edge of frustration from my end because I see this on a daily basis, but it's very, very important to think about this before you go in, because what are you actually going out to see? What are you actually going to tell from looking in the property? What are you going to learn from being there? All properties in Scotland have home reports, and if you're buying a property in England, there will be some form of survey done on the property after you purchase it. That would be highly recommended to do that. And if you were getting lending on the property, that would be an absolute requirement for you to get a survey on the property. I have a close friend who recently started investing in property, and he has worked in property all of his life. His job was literally to value properties for all of his life. And he went out to view a property that he purchased about 6 months ago, completed 4 months ago, but he went in to view this property 6 months ago. He went in and thought everything was fine. And then from the moment he purchased the property, there was leaks under the bathroom. EICR didn't pass, so they had to completely rewire the whole building. There was so much stuff. And this was a vacant property he purchased. He luckily got it at an incredible price, so he didn't lose anything on this investment. But this is a guy that has been valuing properties his entire life and still couldn't see the details as to whether this property was a good investment or not from viewing the property. The truth is, if you're in there and you're actively viewing that property, like, are you really going to get in about the details to find all the problems? Or would it be smarter to get someone who does that as a full-time job all their days, like a surveyor, to actually tell you and feed that information back to you as a professional sense? To be very clear, your job is to be a mathematician and a financier as a property investor, and really consider what your role within investing is going to be. And my recommendation is to really look for stock that has been pre-vetted. That's why a lot of our stuff, and we do 360 walk rounds of all of our property, is just as good as being a viewing. You can literally come on our website, look at a property listing, and literally walk around the property live from cameras that have taken photos of every corner of the room. It means you don't need to physically go there, and you can actually see the condition of the property from the comfort of your own home. It means that you can look at lots of property deals in an evening, and you don't need to, again, physically go out to all of these properties to actually figure out what the internal condition of the property is. Really, what your job is to do is to look at that condition to figure out what your worst case scenario is in terms of refurbishment, and then decide a financial price that you can pay for that property based upon the goals that you have as an investor in terms of the yield or the returns that you want to achieve in your portfolio. And it's this sort of inertia that we commonly see in the estate agency world sort of transpires into investment property sales when actually it's not required. Because I understand going to view a property if you're buying a residential home for you to live in. Because if you're trying to live in that property, your job coming into that property is you want to live in a place that feels like home. You want to feel great there. There's a feeling aspect to it. But if we're buying an investment, we're not getting a feeling. The job is to just invest and financially make money off that asset. Someone else has the feeling, especially if it's tenanted, because they already live in that property. So many people take the sort of residential approach and apply it to in the investing world. And I think in most cases, for most investors, that's not a necessary move to make when you're investing. And you can absolutely, and we absolutely do deal with many investors, including myself, that do not buy properties with viewings. They purely invest based upon the photographs, the 360 walk around, and the reports, the surveyor reports of the properties that is provided. I'm not saying not to carry out due diligence. I'm saying that you don't need to carry out due diligence by actually physically being there, because in most cases, you're not going to pick up more than a qualified surveyor has on that property. And when would I do a viewing? If I was going to live in it. I went down to Manchester recently. We're opening up another office, and I went down to view that office because we're going to physically be there. I want to see what that feels like. I know the vibe of our team and what we're trying to build. To me, viewing that makes a lot more sense. If I'm buying a property for me to live in or a property that I'm going to rent, I will absolutely go and see that property because I'm going to physically be there. For the last 6 properties I've purchased that have been investments, I have not viewed any of them. I've purely looked at them as investments. The same way I wouldn't go and look at Apple headquarters if I was trying to invest in Apple stock. I would just look at the financial reports and I would look at the information online, and that would be more than enough for me to make a qualified investment decision as to whether I want to invest in Apple or not. And I want to be very clear, although I'm critical of this, we still carry out hundreds of property viewings per week. So for any investors that we work with, we absolutely facilitate and offer a service for viewings to happen. But just consider this when you're going forward, because I see so many investors actually miss out on the purchase of properties because we have guys that will literally see something on a website and they will buy it that afternoon. And there's people sitting waiting in the pile for a viewing on a property that actually miss out on great deals because they're sitting there waiting to view instead of actually sitting there making offers on properties. And maybe this different and slightly controversial view is something that you can take into consideration when you're making your next investment purchase. And absolutely, if you feel you need that confidence and it's your first purchase and you really want to do that viewing, go ahead, absolutely view, do what you need to do to feel comfortable. But this is just the mindset of somebody who's done this for a very, very long time, who has seen people go through this process. Like, I used to be the biggest advocate. I would tell everyone to view properties. And if we're sitting here today, I'm honestly in the complete opposite end of the spectrum because I don't think it adds the value that we think it does in the investing world. If you're interested in finding out the #1 secret that first-time investors don't understand, then click the link up here to check out my video on that.